We begin today the Gemara on Daf Samach Zayin Amud Beis, 5 lines up from the bottom of the Amud, where it says Rav Kahane v'Rav Papa. The Gemara here is discussing a case where you have a loan and the lender gets a collateral, a piece of land, and he eats the fruits from this land while he has his collateral in his possession. The issue is, after he's going to get paid his loan, it could turn out to be ribis because he got the full payment of his loan, plus he was eating fruits from this property all the time. So the Gemara before discussed something that's called nachyaisa. Nachyaisa means you deduct, meaning that the lender pays a certain set amount of money for every year that he eats from these paytas. So even if you're not going to deduct from the loan the exact value of the paytas that he ate, but nevertheless, because he's paying a certain set amount for the paytas that he eats in this time period, it's not considered ribis. It could be that this property will produce paytas that will be even more than what he paid for it. It could be actually it'll produce even less. Could be it'll produce nothing. So the fact that he's eating paytas from this field is a suffix, not necessarily is he gaining anything. So if it's a suffix, that's not ribis.
The fact that he's eating them, it's not ribis already?
No, because he's paying for it. He's paying a certain set amount for it. He's not just eating it for free. If he would be eating it and plus he gets the full payment of the loan, that's an issue of ribis. But over here, he's eating from it, true, but he's paying a certain set amount for every year that he eats from it. And he might get nothing. That's why it's not ribis. But the Gemara before brought that Talmidei Chacham shouldn't do this. Here the Gemara brings that some Chachamim did so and some Chachamim did not. Let's see inside. Rav Kahane v'Rav Papa v'Rav Ashi loy achli benachyaisa. They would not use the property that they got for a loan with this agreement or with this setup that they pay a certain set amount for these fruits. They wouldn't do this because it still could look like ribis, that you end up getting more value than just the payment of your loan. Ravina, however, did do this. He did eat from the fruits of this property that he had for the loan, and he paid a set amount, and as I explained, it's not ribis. So Mazutre explained, my time demand the ochel benachyaisa. What's the reasoning of the one, Ravina, that would eat from these paytas that he got from the property that he got for the loan when he paid for it a set amount? Now, the reason is midi dehave azdei achuza. It's because he compares it to the halacha that you find by azdei achuza. Azdei achuza is a property that a person inherits in Eretz Yisrael, and if you give it to hektish, and then you want to redeem it from hektish, the pasuk says you redeem it from hektish for a certain set amount of money. You don't go by the actual value of the property or the value of the fruits that you're going to eat. The pasuk says that there's the 50 years that you have from one yovel to the next. For the 49 years, you have to give 50 shkolim, which ends up being a sela and a punyan for a year. That's the value. There's a certain set value that the Torah says that you have to pay to redeem. That's the halacha by stei achuza. So now the Gemara explains. Stei achuza, this property of inheritance that you want to redeem from hektish, lav, isn't it true? When you redeem it from hektish, now every year that you eat from it until yovel comes, you eat a lot of fruits. Possibly. Well, possibly there'll be no fruits, but possibly you're going to have a lot of fruits from there. And Amar Achmana, what does the Torah say when you redeem it? Kaparik la ba'arba zuzi. You redeem it for 4 zuz for a year. 4 zuz, Rashi says, is the amount of a sela, which is the amount that you redeem it per year. That's the value per year. It's actually a sela plus a little bit more, plus a pundyan, as Rashi brings before, but the Gemara is not medayik here. But so you redeem it for a certain set amount of money for the paytas that you're going to be eating now and getting from this property of hektish. Now over here, you're paying a certain set amount of money, and then you get this property. It may be a loss for you, it may be a gain for you. It may be a loss because the property may produce fruits that are less in value than that you paid for it when you redeemed it. But it may be a gain for you. It may produce much more fruits. But since you're paying a set amount, we say that you're not taking something from hektish without paying it. You're paying hektish that set amount, and then you get the property. It may be a gain, it may be a loss. So Hochanami here as well, when a lender has this property as a collateral and he eats the fruits from it and he pays a set amount for those fruits that he gets every year, loishnat, it's no different. Over here, it may be a gain for the lender, but it may also be a loss. It may not produce those fruits at all. So therefore you can't consider it to be ribis that he's getting more. How do you know? It's a suffix. He may not get it, so therefore it's allowed. But Aman, the Osar, the other opinion, the more brought before Rav Kahane, Rav Papa, Rav Ashi, the others that did not want to do this, Amalach, they'll say to you, stei achuza, you can't bring any raya from this halacha of redeeming the stei achuza from hektish, because stei achuza hektishi. This stei achuza that you dedicated to hektish, it now belongs to hektish. V'rachmane oikmei apidyin. The Torah, there's Gzeiras HaKosav, the Torah gives you the exact set amount of what you have to pay to redeem it. It's a Gzeiras HaKosav that this is what you give in order to redeem. You don't have to get into the discussion, are you gaining, are you losing? That's what the Torah says, that's how you redeem it. But hacha halvahi, here though we're talking about a loan, and you lent someone money, he's paying you back the full amount of the loan, and then if in addition you end up gaining from the fruits that grew from this property, even if you paid a set amount for it, but if the fruits are worth more than that set amount, so even though it's not actual ribbis, but umachzik ribbis, it looks like ribbis, it looks like that you lent someone money and you got paid back more than what you actually lent him. So therefore, the Chachamim would not want to do this. Amar Ravashi said another halacha regarding this property, this mashkin that a person has in his possession. Amru Lisabe, the Masa Machasya, the elders of the city of Masa Machasya, where Ravashi lived, they told him, Stam mashkanta, a mashkanta, this property that a person gets for a collateral, for a loan. What's the usual setup over here? Shata. You can keep this property for a year. Within that year, the borrower can't take it back from you. The deal is that for a year, I'm going to be able to have your property in my possession, to eat from it, to use it, so on. And he pays of it a set amount, so it shouldn't be rivis. What's the relevance of saying that this is a year? The iachol la shata, after the lender used the property for a year, matzi misalikle. Now the borrower can come and say, here, I'm paying you, leave my property. But viloi, if the lender did not use it for a year yet, le matzi misalikle. The borrower cannot remove the lender from the property. For that year, the lender has the property in his possession. The borrower can't remove him. Ravashi said another halacha. The Masa Machasya, the elders of my city, Masa Machasya said, my mashkanta, what is the meaning of the word mashkanta? The word mashkanta is always translated as a collateral, but the word mashkanta actually has a certain meaning in it that means something else. It means the shchune gabe. He is the closest neighbor living in this property. Now, what does this mean? What does it mean that he is the closest neighbor? L'may nafkemina. What's the relevance? L'dina de bar metzra. For the halacha of bar metzra. This is a halacha we're going to learn about a lot later here in the Masechta. When you sell a property, who gets the first rights to acquire the property? The neighbor. Because for him, it's a big thing that he could have two properties that are near each other. So another buyer that comes and wants to buy here, let him buy somewhere else. Why does he have to buy dafke here? The pasuk says, "Asisa yasher v'atoiv." You should do what's good and right. You should offer it to the neighbor. So now this lender that has this property as a collateral, even though it's not really fully his, he just has the property here. He's using it now as a collateral. If there's a sale happening right next door, he is the neighbor that could say, I'm the bar metzra, I get the first rights, that you have to sell it to me and not to anyone else. That's why it's called mashkanta. He's the closest neighbor that can demand this rights. Omar Rave, now Rave said, sort of concluding based on certain halachas that we said before here. So he said 3 points. Number one, less hilchase, we don't paskin, loy ke tarshi papanoi, not like the halacha of tarshi papanoi, which the Gemara is going to spell out what it means. V'loy ke tarshi, kishtari that is. V'loy kishtari mechuzunoi, we don't paskin like the shtaris, the documents that the people of Mechuzah wrote. The Gemara will explain that as well. And v'loy ke chachire narshoi, and not like the chachirim, which are the people that lease properties in Narshoi, which was also it's a place in Bavel, and the Gemara will explain that. Okay, so now the Gemara explains what are these 3 things that Rava said you shouldn't do. We don't paskin like this. The first thing is ketarshi papinoi. What does this refer to? Ketarshi de Rav Papa. This refers to something we learned earlier in the Gemara, the tarshi of Rav Papa. The idea of tarshi is when a person sells something and he tells the buyer that if you're going to pay me in a later date, then the price is going to be higher. If you're paying me now, I'll give you this price. I'll give you the price of what it is. But if you're going to delay payment, then I'm going to charge you more. That's an issue of ribis because you're sort of lending him the money. You're allowing him to pay later, and in return, you're charging him a higher price. So that's like ribis. I mean, the Rabbanah, it's an issue of ribis. So, but Rav Papa, though, he did this, and he said, the way I do it, it's okay. And the reason was, Rav Papa would produce beer. He would produce the beer in Tishrei, and then he would sell it, and the buyers would only pay him in Nisan. And because they're paying him in Nisan, he would charge them a higher price for the delay of the payment of Nisan. And Rav Papa said there's no issue that it looks like ribis or that it's ribis midrabanan here. And the reason why there's no issue of ribis, he said, because I'm not charging a higher price because of the schar that I'm waiting for my money. Truth is, I don't have to sell it right now at all. Rav Papa said, my beer is going to be good by Nisan time. It's good now and it's good in Nisan time. As far as I'm concerned, I'm ready to wait for the sale until Nisan time. He wants it now. I'll do you a favor. I'll sell it to you now. But pay me the price of Nisan. That's when I'm ready to sell it. So Rav Papa says from his perspective, there's no issue of ribis. He's not charging an extra price because of the fact that he's waiting for the money. But the Gemara before already explained that this is an issue of ribis, because as far as from the buyer's perspective is concerned, if they would have had money in their possession now, they could have paid a cheaper price. They're paying a more expensive price because they don't have money in their possession now, and therefore they're only going to pay 6 months later in this, and they're paying a higher price. It comes out that because they're delaying the payment, they're paying a higher price, and therefore there's an issue that's ribis. So we don't paskin like what Rav Papa did. Another thing, shtari mechuzanoi. What does shtari mechuzanoi mean? The documents, the way they wrote it in the city of Mechuzah. They took the profit and they connected it to the principal and they wrote it all into the document. What is this talking about? It's talking about a case where you have a person that has merchandise and he gives it to someone to sell the merchandise for him, and then they're going to split the profits between them. We're going to learn soon in the Mishnah about the details of exactly how this is done. But you have a salesman that sells for you your merchandise and you split the profit with him. So over here, what they would do in Mechuzah is they had a certain assessment. They projected what the income is going to be. And then when they wrote a document between the owner and the salesman, they would write in the document, let's say you got merchandise that's worth 100 and the projected income is going to be, profit is going to be another $20. So they wrote in it, you owe me 110. Because we're splitting the profits, I'm going to get another 10. So they wrote in the document, I'm giving you this merchandise, and you have to give, which is worth 100, and you have to give me back 110 based on the projected profit. That's what they would write in. Now, what's the problem with this? Why is there an issue of ribis here? The issue is, who says that profit will come to be? You have an assessment that this is what the profit, this is what the market you can get for it, but you might not have that profit. And if you don't, and now you have a star that it says in it that he owes you 110, so he's paying you back more than the worth of what the merchandise is. Amalei bar Ameimer, Ravashi, the son of Ameimer, said to Ravashi about this, but Abba Avad Hachi. My father would do this. My father would give a salesman an object and to sell, and they would write then into the star the projected gain, the projected profit. And they weren't concerned that maybe you'll end up charging him even if that profit won't come to be. Why not? Because when the salesman would come back to my father, he would trust them. If they would tell him we made that profit, he would charge them for it. If they would say, sorry, we didn't make this profit, he wouldn't charge them for it. So there won't be any ribis, even though it was written in the star, but he would make sure to find out afterwards, did they make that profit or not? Amalei, so Ravashi says to the son of Ameimar, Teina chechedisa. That's okay if your father that is going to ask the salesman whether he made that profit or not. If he himself is still around, so then he'll inquire. But Ishachiv v'nafal shtorek hamiyasmi. What's if your father would pass away? And now this document that says in it that this salesman owes you this amount of money, and now the assignment, the children look at this and they don't know what the story behind it was. They just see that there's a document that says that he owes you this amount of money. So what's going to be then? They're not going to know to inquire, did you make the profit? Did you not make the profit? So it comes out that he's going to be paying ribis more than the merchandise that he gave him. That's why Ravashi said that it's a problem to do this. So the Gemara says what happened here is a result of what Rav Ashi answered. This is like a mistake that comes out from the mouth of the words of a ruler. When you say something, even if you say something that you don't intend a certain result to happen, but when a ruler says something, people will act upon his words very quickly. And over here, because Rav Ashi said this expression, what would happen if Ameimer would die? That actually happened. V'noch nafshid Ameimer, and Ameimer passed away. Whoa. The third case that Rava said you shouldn't do, we don't paskin like, Chachiri Narshoi, the lease of the people of Narshoi. What's the lease of the people of Narshoi? The Kasvi Achi, they wrote as follows, Mashkenle Planya Are La Planya, that so-and-so is giving his property as a collateral for a loan. So a lender is getting a property for a collateral, which is what we're talking about in this entire sugya, that it's called the mashkanta. The property that he's getting now is a mashkanta. Now, what could this lender do with it? So as we learned before in the beginning, that he's allowed to eat from the paytas of this property, at least according to one opinion. He can eat from the paytas of the property as long as he pays a certain set amount for the paytas that he eats every year, even if later he's going to get paid the full amount for his loan, and in addition he ate paytas from the property. It's not an issue of ribis because he's paying a certain set amount for the paytas that he's eating from it every year. But now what they would do is, in this place Narshoi, v'hodar chachre minei, and then, now what the lender would do is, he would lease the property back to the borrower. And he would charge the borrower money for this lease. So in such a case, you can't do this. This is going to be an issue of ribis. Why? Because Amos Kana, the Akne Nale. When did the lender acquire this property that he is leasing it back to the borrower? What basically ends up happening over here is, the lender, he lent him $100, he gets a property, and now what is he, as a collateral, what does he do with that property? He's leasing it back to the borrower, and now the borrower has to give him, let's say, $10 for this lease. So it ends up that he gets $100 back for his payment, plus the money of the lease. So that's not allowed, because the mamish looks like a real ribis here. He's getting back 110. In a case where the lender keeps the property in his own possession, and he eats fruits from it, and he pays the borrower a certain set amount for the fruits that he eats from it, then it's possible that the fruits that he's going to eat from this property will be actually more than the value of the fruits that he ate. It's possible it'll be less. Like I mentioned in the beginning, it's a suffix. It's not, the fact that he's eating fruits is not clear whether it's going to end up being a gain for the lender or not. Therefore, that's allowed. But in this case, there's no suffix. You lent this guy $100. In addition, you not take his property and then lease it back to him and charge him for the lease that you leased it back to him. So you basically see over here, there's a, Rashi calls it ribis ktsutza. It's a direct ribis where you're getting paid back with him plus money for a lease. So therefore you're not allowed to do this. Yeah, now the Gemara, somebody showing him say that it's not real ribis, it only looks like ribis, but from Rashi it's mashma that this is mamish ribis. But the Gemara says, however, now the kakosvi yachi, that they would make this deal, they would take this property and then lease it back to the borrower, and they would write in it, kanina minei, I took this property, the lender that is, took the property from the borrower as a collateral, and v'shahina kame idani, and I stayed in the property, I used it for myself a certain while, Rashi says 3 years, and v'hada chakra, and only afterwards did I lease it back to the borrower. So in order not to lock the doors in front of people that want to borrow money, shaper dami, this is allowed. Okay, so what the Gemara is saying is, in a case where the lender is never using the property for himself, he's lending money, and then right from the beginning, the deal is the property that you have to give me as the collateral, I'm not taking it from you, I'm charging you on it. I'm leasing it right back to you, and I'm charging you on it. So that's not mamish like a direct ribis, that I'm getting paid back plus the money for the lease on this property. But if the lender takes the property, the lender keeps the property in his possession and uses it and eats the paytas from it for 3 years in the proper way, meaning that he pays a certain set amount for the paytas that he's eating, and so then there is no issue of ribis, because the lender might gain or he might lose. It might not produce any paytas at all. And only later on does he give the property back to the borrower as a lease. Then there's no issue of ribis. The Gemara says, we want that people should be motivated to lend money, so therefore we allow them to do this. But the Gemara concludes and says, no, this is not reliable. V'lav milsihi, this is not true. It doesn't matter if he immediately leases it back to him or he leases it back to the borrower only after a certain period of time. It makes no difference. The point is, the moment the lender leases this property back to the borrower, you're getting a definite gain. You're asking him to pay you back the loan plus the money for the lease. So this is ribis. According to Rashi, it's mashma. This is mamish ribis ktsutza. This is serious ribis, and therefore it's not allowed. Okay, before we see the Mishnah inside, there's actually some, you have to understand over here what this Mishnah is talking about. The Mishnah sort of comes in the middle of a story here and tells you a certain halacha. This Mishnah talks about what's called an iska, when you have an investment. What's the halacha with an investment? This is really the point we had before regarding the shtarim mechuzunoi. When you have a person that has money, He's the financer, and then you have the investor. And he gives the money to this person to invest for him. What's the deal over here between them? You can have two ways seemingly, you could have two ways how you go about this. One way to go about this is you give the money to the investor. Now the investor is going to invest the money, and the profit is going to be split between them. But the thing is, what happens over here if the investment goes bad and it all's a loss? Who's taking the loss over here? So there's two ways you can go. One way is to say that the investor is going to take the entire loss, and it's going to be his responsibility to give you back the whole principal of what the money that was given for the investment. In such a case, really no investor would be ready to do such a thing. That the whole entire loss should be all his, and whatever the risk in the market is going to be all his responsibility. And the other issue is that this is mamash an issue of ribis, because if the investor is the one that's taking the full responsibility for what's happening here, what that basically means is that you're giving him the money as a loan. The idea of a loan is that I'm lending you the money, you invest it, we're going to split the profits. But if it's all his responsibility, why is it all his responsibility? It's like a borrower. A borrower, he borrows money, and you can do it, the money, whatever you want, invest it, do whatever you want. But when the time comes, it's your responsibility to pay me back the money no matter what happens. There's no excuses of a aynus, you have to pay back the money. So if you're giving money to an investor and he has to give you back the full amount of money no matter what loss there is, that's a borrower. And if there's going to be profit, and now you're splitting the profits with him, so you lent him money and you're getting back the full payment plus profit. That's ribis. So you can't set it up that way. On the other hand, another option is that you give the money to the investor and you tell the investor, listen, if there's any loss in this investment, I'll take the responsibility. The financer, he says, I'm going to take the full responsibility. You're not responsible for any loss. If there's profit, then we'll split the profit. That's another approach. And then there's no issue of ribis, because then it's not a loan. It's like a pekadon. It's like I'm giving you a pekadon. Here, keep this object for me. If an aynus happens to this pekadon, you're not responsible. Same thing with this money. If you invest it and an aynus happens with it, you're not responsible. If there's profit, then we'll split it. That's another option, and there won't be any issue of ribis. The problem is, nobody in their right mind would be ready to do such a thing. Why should you give money to an investor when he doesn't have any responsibility of any loss that will happen with this investment? You take the full responsibility. He's going to invest the money carelessly, because what he's going to take the biggest risks. What does he care? So in order for this to be able to be done properly, where they both should agree, and there shouldn't be an issue of ribis, the Gemara later says, that what you do is, this kind of investment is split. Half of it is looked at as a loan, half of it is looked at as a pekadon, which means half of it is going to be the responsibility of the investor, that whatever loss happens, it's his responsibility, and half of it is going to be the responsibility of the financer, that's the one that's giving the money, that whatever loss happens, he takes responsibility. And then they split the profits here. So when you split the profits, there's no issue of ribis, because the half of the profit that the financer is getting, he's getting the profit on the portion that's a pekadon. The portion that's a loan is the other half, and over there, the investor is the one that's getting the profits for that. The profit that the financer is getting is from the half that's a pekadon. So on a pekadon, there's no issue of ribis. Ribis is only by a loan, not by a pekadon. That's how Chachamim designed this iska. This is what's called the iska. There's the balabayas, and there's the misasik, which I was calling before, the financer and the investor. Okay, but now this Mishnah, this is where our Mishnah begins, and the Mishnah discusses there's still going to be an issue of ribis over here. Why? Because a portion of this investment is treated as a loan, and this investor is working for you. He's doing the whole work for you. So you're getting profit, so the profit is not an issue of ribis, as explained before, because you're getting profit on the portion of a pekadon. But the problem is you're getting back your principal of this money, plus all the work that he does for you. And if he's not getting paid for that work that he does for you, that means that there's a portion of this investment which is a loan that you're getting fully back, plus all the work that he does for you that he's not getting paid for. So you're getting back more than what you gave him in this loan. That's the issue of ribis that this Mishnah discusses. No, by a pekadon, there's no such a thing as ribis. By a pekadon, if you give a person a pekadon and you're taking the full responsibility for any loss that happens, and then later there is a profit, and then you get profit on it, there's no issue of ribis by a pekadon. Ribis is only by a loan, not by a pekadon. Okay, so the issue over here is that there's a portion of this investment which is treated like a loan, and he's working for you, so it comes back that you get payment for a loan, plus all the work that he does for you. That work that he does for you is a gain that you have on this loan, in this investment. So therefore the Mishnah says, you can't have a storekeeper that takes your fruits and sells it for you, and we split the profits in the way I explained before, the way it's designed, and you're going to get half. And also, another case, a person can't give money to someone to go and invest with this money, go buy fruits for it, and then sell the fruits. And we're going to split the profits. You have to pay him also for the work that he does. Because otherwise, there's the issue of ribis, that you're getting back the money over here when a portion of this investment is a loan, plus the work that he does for you. But yes, you have to pay him as a worker. If you pay him, so then you're not getting back over here free work that he does for you. Similar then, you can't have take your eggs and you want someone else to do the work for you, to take the tarnagoyl, the chicken, to go and sit on the eggs that they should hatch, and then you'll have the chicks, and then we're going to split the profits of the chicks, and also the ein shomen agolen usyachin lemechze. If you have calves or syachin, how do they translate syachin? I think it's young horses. Colts, which are young horses. Okay, and you're giving it to someone to raise them for you, lemechze, and then we're going to split the profits of these of the calves and these horses. Unless you pay him for all the work that he does, and also he's feeding these animals. If you're not going to pay him for that, so then it comes out that you're gaining. You're getting back the payment for this, and a portion of this is a loan, plus all the work and the feeding that he does, so therefore you have to pay him for that. Aval, however, you're allowed to give him these calves or horses and for half, which means if you're not going to make up with him, that you're going to see how much the value is now, and then later we're going to split after you raise it, and then we're going to split what it is. But you're just going to tell him, here, take care of this, and half is going to be yours. Half of these animals is going to belong to you. Okay, without estimating exactly, it's not a loan. There's no portion that's a loan over here at all. You're just telling him, raise it, and then we're going to split them between ourselves. So then that is allowed. You don't have to pay him for the work that he does for you. The Mishnah finishes off with another din regarding this over here. When you're doing this work for someone, until what point, when you make this deal that you have to that he's going to be raising for you horses, how much time does he have to give for this? He has to raise these horses until they're going to be a third of more of what it was now. Okay, or a third, or to a third to its full development. And or a donkey, if you're raising a donkey for someone, that's until the donkey is strong enough that it could carry a load. That's the deal, that the way it has to be done. Okay, Zok the Gemara. What did it say in the Mishnah? When you have this person doing this job for you, so you have to pay him for the work that he does, because otherwise it's going to be ribis. Now, exactly how much you have to pay him? So Tana and Abraisi, we learned kepayil bottle. You pay him like a person that's unemployed. So it simply sounds like what this means is a person has a job, he's getting paid well. But then a person that's unemployed gets paid for unemployment very little. So here, the fact that it says that he's doing this investment for you, and because it's like a loan, part of it is a loan. So therefore, you have to pay him for the work that he does in order that it shouldn't be ribis. What do you pay him? Just like very little. You're paying like a person that's unemployed. So the Gemara asks, why? Mike Pile Bottle. Why are you only paying him like a person that's unemployed? He's actually working for you. He's doing this whole investment. So why you should pay him properly? Amar Abaye, so Abaye says, Kepayil Bottle shall oisem malacha de bottle minei. You have to pay him for the value of the difference of that work that he's now becoming unemployed from. What it means is, if this person before had a higher paying job, but he worked very hard in that job, and now you want him to do this much easier job for you. You want him to sell fruits for you. And selling fruits, he'll just have to stand in a store and take money from people. It's much less work, but he's also going to get paid much cheaper. How much would a person be ready to take for the difference of this more difficult job? For this cheaper job, that's how much you have to pay him in order that it shouldn't be ribis. Now, the Gemara explains, going back to our Mishnah, the two cases that were mentioned in our Mishnah are both necessary. The Mishnah in the beginning said two cases. One is when you give a person fruits, you give a storekeeper fruits to sell for you, and a portion of it is a loan. And there the Mishnah said that you have to pay him for the work that he does. And the other case the Mishnah said was when you give a person money. and then he's going to take your money and invest it, buy fruits or buy whatever merchandise and sell it for you. So why does the Mishnah say both of these cases? If we'd only say the first case that you're giving it to a storekeeper, I would say like a pile bottle. In the case of a storekeeper that's selling your fruits, it's enough that you pay him like a pile bottle, as we explained, the difference between the more difficult job that he was doing before with a higher income than the income that he has now. So you're not really paying him fully. And the reason why that's enough is mishum delei nafish tirche, because just being a storekeeper and selling fruits is not such a difficult job. You have to just stand there by the cash register and take payment from people. So over there, that's enough of a payment. But I would think that in the other case, the Mishnah says, you give a person money, that now take my money, buy fruits with it, invest it, the nafish tirche. There's much more that's involved in doing this. Like a pile bottle. Maybe I would say it's not enough to pay him like a pile bottle. You have to pay him fully for his time and for the effort that he does. So therefore the Braisa is saying that even regarding this case, you also only pay him like a pile bottle. On the other hand, if we would only say the case where you give a person money to go and buy fruits and then you're going to split the profit, I would say that maybe here you have to pay him as a pile bottle. You have to pay him for the difference from the job that he had to the job that he's doing now. And the reason is mishum denafish tirche. Here, there's effort involved in taking that money and buying the fruits. It's not just sitting there as a storekeeper. You actually have to go and buy merchandise with this money. But maybe if you're just giving your fruits to a storekeeper and you're going to split the profits with him, in order that it shouldn't be ribis, I would say, since the loy nafish tirche, there's very little effort that he's doing for you. He has a store and he's sitting in a store and you're just giving him your fruits to sell for you. So there's very little effort involved in this. Maybe in order that it shouldn't be ribis, that you're giving him something for the work that he's doing for you, just a tiny bit would be fine. And what would that be? Even if this person comes and eats with you a lunch, and you allow him to dip his bread into your what do they have? It's fish sauce. Yeah. Or even if he eats with you just one dry fig. That's enough. That's enough of a payment for him. And maybe that would be enough that it shouldn't be ribis. Tzricha, therefore, has to tell you that no, you have to pay him as a pile bottle. You have to pay him for what he does. So okay, here there's a siman, kama, easy, mitar geilim, mailim, siman. This is different words of the different braises that the Gemara is going to bring now. So here the Gemara actually brings a braisa where there's a machlokes tanaim regarding this halacha when a person is doing an investment for you and a portion of it is a loan. So you have to pay him for the work that he's doing in order that when you get back your money, it shouldn't be ribis because he's working for you for free. So how much do you have to pay him? So here there's a machlokes about this. Tan Rabbana we learned in the Braisa, kamuz charai. How much you have to pay this investor that's doing the work for you? So bei merube or bei muad. Whether he does, there's a lot that you gain or there's a little, doesn't make a difference. There's a certain set amount that you pay for this worker, and it doesn't make a difference if it's a lot or a little that comes out of here that you're giving him a lot of fruits or a little fruits. There's one set amount and it's the same. David Rab Meir, that's what Rab Meir says. Rabbi Yehuda says, that's what we just mentioned before, that when you have to pay him for the work that he does for you, you have to pay him a tiny drop. You allow him to dip his bread into your fish sauce or give him a little figs. That's enough of a schar for the work that he does for you, and it won't be ribis. Rab Shimon ben Yochai says, you have to give him a proper pay for the work that he does for you. According to Rashi, schare mishalim over here means that you pay him like the pile bottle, the difference between the better job, the higher paying job that he had now, and the job that he's doing now for you. And Rab Shimon ben Yochai is the opinion of the Mishnah or the Braisa that Gemara mentioned before. Tana Rabbanan, in another Braisa we learned about this halacha of a person that's an investor for you, and a portion of it is a loan. Again, the issue is that if you get back now the profit, you're getting back the money, you're getting back profit. The profit is not the issue of the ribis, but the issue is that he's working for you, and so you have to pay him for that work. You can't estimate the value of the goats or of sheep, or not anything else that does not work and eat lamechza. In this setup where he's investing for you, he's doing the work for you, and then you're going to split the profits that come out of it. What the Gemara means, what the Braisa here means to say by this is that when you have animals that can work, they also eat, and the investor that's working with these animals is working very hard, but he now has animals that he can use for himself as well. For example, if you give someone an ox, and you tell him, here, you're going to work with the ox in the field, and whatever profit comes out of the work of this ox, we'll split between ourselves. So you give him a donkey. Whatever work this donkey does for you, we'll split it. But the thing is, you're not going to have to also pay him for the work that he does. Why? Because this investor that now is doing the work with this ox or donkey can use the actual ox and donkey for himself, because the ox can do work for him also. The ox is oiseh. It works. So the work that it does for this investor, that will be enough. You don't have to additionally pay him. But the Braisa is saying, when it comes to goats or sheep, you're going to have to pay him for the work that he does, because the goats and the sheep won't do any other work for him. The investor that has them, he's not gaining out of it. He's doing work for you, and he's not getting paid for it. So you have to pay him for that. That's Tanakama. Rabbi Yosef, Rabbi Yehuda says, no, even by goats and sheep, you don't have to pay him for the work that he does for you in order for it not to be ribis. He has already a gain out of the fact that he's keeping these goats and sheep in his possession. Shamanis izim, you could estimate and see what he gets from the goats itself. Why? Because the person that's doing the work with the goats for you, and then he's raising these goats, let's say, or he's raising the sheep, and then you split the goats and the profit between you, and between the investor and the financer. But there's the milk though. They produce milk, so the investor is getting milk. Or same thing similar with sheep, because you can share the wool. Or when they walk through water, when these sheep walk through water, there's wool that comes off of it. Or martais, when it goes through thorns, it pulls off pieces of the wool from the animal. So he has already a gain. I don't have to pay him for the work that he does, like it said in our Mishnah, because these are animals that he anyways has a gain from it. Or Veshan is similar when it comes to a chicken, because it does produce while it also eats, but it also produces eggs. So therefore, it's not there's no issue of ribis here, because the investor that's doing all the work for you is also gaining by having it. So the Gemara now says, the Tanakama, why does he disagree with what Rabbi Yosef Rabbi Yehuda is saying? Gize v'cholov loy safik loy sipik l'schar amalei mezaynai. The shearings of the wool or the milk that the worker is getting here, the investor worker is getting over here, that's not enough as a payment for him for the work that he does and for what he has to feed these animals. He's getting a lot. Why should he have to get any additional payment? So the Gemara says, if it's a case that he's getting the shearings of the wool or he's getting the milk, nobody would argue that that's enough of a payment for him. When's the argument here? If he's not getting milk. The milk is actually also split between the investor and the financer. The milk is not going to be a profit that the investor gets for himself. But rather, all he's getting is nisyavi. Nisyavi is the watery part from the milk. It's called the whey of the milk. That's the only thing that he's getting, which is a very little value. Or v'tusri. Tusri is those little bit of wool that gets pulled off from thorns. That's the only thing that the investor is getting here. So that's the machlekes, whether that's enough of a payment for him. Tanakama savala Rab Shimon ben Yochi. Tanakama holds, like we said before, Rab Shimon ben Yochi the Amad that says you have to pay him a proper payment. You can't just give him a little bit in order that there shouldn't be ribis. Rabbi Yosef Rabbi Yehuda savala Ravua. Rabbi Yosef Rabbi Yehuda holds like the Braisa that was quoted before, what his father said. Rabbi Yosef said, the Omar, he said, even if there's a tiny amount of payment, that's enough of a payment for him that it should not be considered ribis. Tan Rabbanan in another brayse we learned, Maskeres isha lechaverta tarnageles b'shnei efreichen. A woman could hire someone that she has the eggs and someone else has a chicken, and she could hire her friend. She could hire a friend with the chicken to have her chicken sit on the eggs to hatch them. And there's no issue of ribis. Now, what this means is, the reason why there's no issue of ribis is if this is done with an agreement that whatever loss there will be, it's going to be the Bala Beitzim's loss. The one that's giving the eggs is going to have the loss. There's no element of a loan here involved in this. It's just, I'm hiring you that your chickens are going to sit on my egg to hatch them. What happens if there's any loss? You don't have to pay me back. So it's not a loan. It's just like a pekadon. So therefore, whatever work that's being done for you is not considered to be an extra payment of ribos on a loan. There's no aspect of a loan here. However, isha she'omra lachaverta, a woman that tells her friend, tarnagaylis sheli, I have a chicken, ubeitzim shelichi, and you have eggs. So let's make a deal together that your chicken is going to sit on my eggs, and now whatever profit there is from the chicks that hatch over here, we're going to split it between us. So this is mamish the case of our Mishnah, where when you split it, a portion of this is considered to be a loan. That's the way Chachamim set up every single iska. In this case, is no different, that you set up half of it as a pekadon, half of it as a loan. So in such a case, the work that the investor is doing here, or the one that the Baal Tarnagelis is doing, is going to be a sort of a payment of ribis on this portion of the loan that there is in this. So Rabbi Yehuda Mater, Rabbi Yehuda says this is still allowed. There's no issue of ribis, but Rab Shimon says that there's work that's being done for you, and you're getting over here a gain with this work that's being done for you, plus the portion of the loan that there is here, the payment for the loan, like what it said in our Mishnah. So the Gemara now explains, why does Rabbi Yehuda disagree with this? Rabbi Yehuda disagrees with the point that it said in the Mishnah about this, that in such a case, because there's a portion which is a loan, so you have to pay the Baal Tarnagelis for his work, you have to pay him for what he's feeding the chicken, in order that you shouldn't have a gain over here that you're getting besides a payment for your loan, that the work that he does for you. So the Gemara answers, no, you don't have to pay. The reason is because the Baal Tarnagelis has a certain gain without you paying him. What's the gain he gets? He gets the eggs that do not hatch, the eggs that you could eat. You could take afterwards those eggs, and you're allowed to eat those eggs. Rashi brings from the Gemara and Chulin, you're allowed to eat these eggs. So therefore, she gets the eggs that she could keep. Okay, let's learn one more piece over here. Tan Rabbanan, another brayse. We learned here about this halacha when you have someone that's doing work for you, and a portion of it is considered to be a loan, and you have to pay them for the work that they do. So we learned in the brayse, Makim shenogu lahalois schar kosef lemois beheme mailen. In a place where the custom is that you pay for the work that he does, but you also pay when he's taking care of your animals, that he has to carry the animals on his shoulders. So you have to pay that. If that's the minig that you pay, if you're not going to pay that, then again there's going to be an issue of ribis, because you're getting back, and a portion of it is a loan, and this is work that he did for you, and if he's doing it for you for free, and the minig is that you pay, so you're gaining something here, so therefore you have to pay this. You can't switch from what the custom in the country is. Rab Shimon ben Gamliel says that it depends. If it's an animal, Shalmin Egel im Imai, if it's a calf together with the mother, or Siach im Imai, the colt, a young horse together with the mother, in such a case, you don't have to pay for him to carry the fact that he's carrying it, because you don't have to carry. In many cases, you're not going to have to carry, because the calf is just going to go after the mother, and it's going to eat from the mother. So the investor is not doing that work, he's not feeding it, the mother takes care of it. Even in a place where the minig is that people pay for the work to carry the animals, but if the mother is there, you're not going to have to carry the animals. But the Gemara clarifies on this. What Rab Shimon ben Gamliel just said, when the animal is there with the mother, you don't have to pay for the work that the person does with these animals. The Gemara's question over here is, the way Taisus explains it, even though many times the animal just goes after the mother, but many times not. Many times you're going to have to carry the animal. And the minig in this place is that is work that you pay for. So why should you not have to pay for it? It comes out ribis when you're getting that work for free. And says the Gemara, no, ikke glolim. The reason you don't have to pay for it is because the one that's doing the work is getting a gain of the glolim, the dung of the animal that he could use for fertilizer. So he is getting something in return for his work. You're not getting paid back for this investment here, which is a portion alone, plus the work that he's doing for free. He's not doing it for free. He's getting glolim. However, the other opinion says that we can't count these glolim. Why not? Glolim afkuri mafkaluhu. The glolim of the animal, that's hefker. You can't consider it to be something that you're paying him for the work that he's doing. You're not paying him. Those glolim are hefker. So therefore, you are going to have to pay him for the work that he does. Amar Rav Nachman, halacha ke Rav Yehuda. Rav Nachman says we paskin what Rav Yehuda said before here regarding this, that you have to pay a worker, that it shouldn't be ribis. So, or the worker, the investor, you even pay him a tiny amount. He can dip his food into your fish sauce, that's good enough. We paskin like Rav Yehuda. And v'halacha Rav Yosef Rav Yehuda, we paskin like Rav Yosef Rav Yehuda as well, that it's mentioned before. And v'halacha Rav Shimon ben Gamliel. And we paskin like this halacha that Rav Shimon ben Gamliel just said.